The end of the working class. It's quite interesting that, as predicted in Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek depiction of mankind's future on Earth, was to see an eventual end of people working for money, as their primary means for survival, for I think what we're experiencing now is that realization. As populations grow across the world and product manufacturers look for cheaper ways to make products and get these products into as many hands as possible, we are reaching an impasse on what human labor alone can provide. At a point, approaching really fast now, there will be far more people on Earth than can possibly fill all the jobs available across the world, especially with robotic automation taking over in just about every area of product development, outside of creative design. This is why I see the end of the working class as we know it. Now, it's not that I foresee a world of lazy people approaching. It's that we as a culture are going to have to redefine and address what people will be doing in the future. In the Star Trek universe, we still see people going out to eat, wearing clothing, have homes and the basic necessities of life, and still working at some type of profession, but Mr. Roddenberry left out some fine details that would help us understand the steps to this future. Currently, some governments across the world, including here in the United States, fight tooth and nail against the notion of money, food, shelter, and clothing going to those they deem not worthy, because they don't stand up to the image of the classic working class person, as defined by their father's generation and the countless generations before them, but their fathers lived in a totally different time and place. I was just thinking the other day, what would my father have thought of using an Apple iPad or a flat-screen TV, having been born in 1913? In many ways it would have been like him using alien technology. So times have changed, and like it or not, we're going to have to find a solution to what to do with all of the people on this planet in a constructive way, that is, for I hate to break the bad news to the governments, corporations, and the wealth class of the world, you're outnumbered and avoiding the tidal wave heading your way can't be stopped. Yes, sadly, large amounts of people can be wiped out by wars, starvation, and plagues, but with our current state of technology this can have, and often does, have a boomerang effect, coming back on those who initiate these actions or ignore these situations with disastrous results. A nuclear weapon detonated anywhere in the world can spread radiation across the world. A plague in Africa is just a plane flight away from any country in the world. There is always a negative domino effect to relying on these population controls, even if we're not initially aware of what they might be. Did most of the world understand that dropping a nuclear bomb would kick off a nuclear arms race across the world, to the point now when the United States, Russia, and China have enough weapons to destroy the Earth many times over? So, what is the solution to having more people on Earth than can possibly work? Some countries might turn to forced labor as a solution, but sorry, this type of solution can only last for a short time, before the people rise up and kill those who implemented such a system. People have a nasty habit of rebelling against brutality and being forced to do things they are unhappy doing. Realistically, here are the things I foresee happening in the future. 1. Governments are going to have some type of population control in place, and yes, like it or not, that means birth control to all those who oppose it on religious grounds. There is only a finite space on this world for people, and we're going to reach a limit on how much food can be produced, how much waste can be handled, and how many people can be housed on it, at least until we move to other planets. The only other solution is self-imposed abstinence, which we've proven not to be very good at as a species, or the horrifying extermination of newborns, something no civilized culture wants the history of doing. 2. Governments are going to have to provide a living wage to all of its citizens. That's right, I said it, and like it or not it's going to happen, regardless of what your personal or political preferences might be. There are just going to be, if not already, too many people out there to fill all of the jobs available. Ignoring the basic needs of people, by denying them these basics, are going to lead to an increase in crime, and crime leads to jail, and jail leads to the government paying for these basic necessities anyway, and sometimes at an even greater cost. Now, I'm not implying that the amount of money the government gives lets people live the lifestyle of the rich and famous, For earning more through hard work still is a motivating factor and one that shouldn't be ignored. What I foresee is the government providing a baseline income that provides for transportation, food, clothing, medical, and housing, but if Johnny and Susie want the high-end cars, fashion, and entertainment, then they are going to have to pitch in. The only way for this to happen is for them to earn extra income from other sources. Yes, it's true that there will be some out there who would be fine living off the government, but honestly I think those types of people would be the exception and not the rule. People in general, from my experience, want to be expressive, create, invent and explore, and I believe that once the day-to-day battle for just the basics for survival is taken care of, we could see an explosion in the human intellect, a renaissance of humanity if you will. We could also see a drastic drop in violence across the world, for, outside of religion, what would people really fight over anymore, if they are healthy, fed, clothed and housed? The Star Trek future is one where you live each day to grow as a human being, not just spend 5 days a week foraging for food at a 9-to-5 job. Maybe you spend time painting, inventing or helping others in your town, or spend more time meditating on expanding your mind, who knows, for there are endless possibilities to what one might do with all of this extra time. The one thing that I'm sure of is that the family and even the local community structure, that we've seen an erosion of over the past 30+ years, would become stronger. 3. The standard amount of time a person spends at work would have to come down, for as our population increases, a single job role would have to be divided up amongst many people. The understanding of a full-time job would change from an 8-hour workday to 6, then 4, then maybe even 2 as our population grows and we as a society have a greater need to keep people busy and engaged in business. A person may have 2, 3, or even 4 different jobs throughout the week, depending on their skill set. This type of working life may even have the unique benefits of strengthening each community, for today you might run into your friend Mary at one place in town, but in the future you might run into her at 3 or 4 different places in town, throughout the week. 4. In the world of the future, mass transportation is not only a necessity, it can't be avoided any longer. We're just going to have far too many people to rely on the idea of one person, one vehicle system of today. We just don't have the land to build more and more roads, and unless we like the idea of living underground, homes will have to take priority over new freeways. Likewise, companies are going to have to let people work at home and at remote work sites more and more, just to keep them off the roads, reduce employee stress and improve productivity. We're already seeing this in the area of information processing and programming, but perhaps we'll see more of this in manufacturing as well, as someone at a computer at home can tell robots on a factory floor thousands of miles away what to do, or go into their garage where there is a 3D printer set up and develop parts for their company. It's funny that companies like Amazon are building warehouses all over the country to bring products closer to their customers, yet at the same time companies like this are not trying to move their workers in the same way to optimize their time. Where is the logic in an employee spending 1 to 2 hours on the road each day to get to work? That's time lost to a company, to their families and even to the health of the environment and communities they live in. There are a whole host of possibilities, but the notion of transporting a person miles away from their homes and towns to work will become an antiquated notion, at least until someone invents a Star Trek transporter device. So, the end of our notion of a labor class is ending. The only question is, will we approach it as a challenge to be solved or a war to be fought?